the phones again, 637-0094. Hey, we'd also, of course, like to hear from you guys all the time. That's the number, 637-0094. Speaker Tina Munoz Barnes. Good morning, Madam Speaker.
Manana Susos, and good morning, Chris. Are you with Sabrina this morning?
Yes.
I'm always with Sabrina.
Unfortunately.
Wow, thanks.
I'm just kidding.
Well, I just want to say good morning and happy belated Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. It was such a blessing to have to go to Mass with my kids and then just have a quiet dinner with my 3 children and my grandson, my 2 grandsons that are here. So I have a couple that are off island, but I pray for them every day. But I'm just grateful to be alive and to be here. So I thank God for the many blessings.
Amen.
Which Mother's Day, Bree.
Speaker, how was you said you went to church? Which one? How was that?
I did not go to the the outside. I stayed home with my family. And
so you were in the kitchen cathedral.
I was in the kitchen cathedral, and it was really good to have breakfast with my mom and her listening to the Mass.
Oh, that's good.
She's slowing down in age, but her mind is still very sharp, and she's such a beautiful lady.
We wanted to bring you on to talk about this.
The information.
There's a lot.
Right, there was just a lot of stuff here.
Yes, there is, and you know what, Chris and Sabrina, really important as Oversight Chair of Public Accountability. We had sent this request for an information briefing out because we continue as a policy team go out there and get the information that is happening. We work with the weekly briefings with the White House. We send letters out to the policymakers. I've been working with speakers around the nation to see what we can do to bring more resources to our government. And more importantly, when I receive information from them and supporting documents of how they're assisting on Guam, really important that the community has a better understanding of what is being provided for Guam as it relates to stimulus packages, as it relates to grant programs, as it relates to how are we going to get this funding to our community. And I must share that with everybody in the government who's doing their part to apply for these grants, to apply for these federal programs, to work with Department of Labor, with Small Business Administration, with the IRS, with just, everything from FEMA to FDA. I think it's important that the people have a better understanding because I don't know if you guys have been an influx with a lot of questions from the middle class community, but everyone was saying, we take care of those that are most vulnerable, and of course, those that are well off, they can help and fend for themselves. But what about those who literally have in the middle class arena, having to had whether they are displaced, furloughed, temporarily let go from their jobs? What programs are there that exist today? And I want to share with you that as we look at one of the successful programs with the PPP, working it was the banks and Department of Labor and just Revenue Tax working together to bring that component out and having it affect 1,500 businesses, but more importantly, to bring out over $186 million of federal resources to our island. That's got to be a plus. But there's so much more that's happening, Chris and Sabrina, and I know that I'm talking really fast, but I want to say that the information that the Trump administration has shared with us was literally providing almost $736 million to Guam between January and December. That doesn't even include the unemployment with the PUA or with the FPUC, which is the federal compensation pandemic compensation component, and even the EIDL, and then of course we've got the stimulus that just got receive funding for Guam after this long wait, even if we were the first ones to apply.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why it is important that as Oversight Chair of Public Accountability, I think it's important that we have a venue working with the administration to show that all these programs that are out there that have come to Guam, this is what we need to show the community of what we have.
Right.
I'm telling you.
That Trump breakdown that we received, as you know, and you also provided it to the media. We got that after we saw that breakdown from the governor's office on where they plan on spending the $118 million CARES Act funding. Were you aware prior to that, before the budget breakdown came out, about all this money, this $700 million that was out there that we are getting or have received?
Bree, I want to share with you on that. As soon as we got the information, we sent it out right away.
Mm-hmm.
When I have briefings with the governor, if I have briefings with the White House, weekly briefings, and if I work with National Conference of State Legislators, whatever I do, I take my bullet notes and I send it out to our policy colleagues, and I share whatever I get. And I think with a lot of the information, either overload or lack of sharing the information in a simplistic form, because it can get very complicated. Having to apply for all these grants, having to turn in all these documents, even as far as working with the PUA and with the FP UC, it is not easy to keep up with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, FPIC is a component that works closely with the PUA, but also the PPP was one of the first successful programs.
Right, but I just wanted to ask about that breakdown, the Trump administration's breakdown in comparison to the governor's budget breakdown for the $118 million.
The breakdown is just for the CARES Act.
Right. Then that's what I'm saying, though. It was included in that Trump list. It had the 118 or 117.9, but then you had the budget breakdown that was submitted by the governor's office, and it had like X amount of money for like the airport, when they already got money from FAA, like over 20 million. So why would it be included in this budget breakdown if they got money over here?
And again, based on your concerns or your
no, it's not. I'm just observing it, and I didn't know if is this legit? Like, how can we put money over here when we already got money over here in this budget?
And again, it's how do we get whatever resources we have to our folks that are not just vulnerable, but to our middle class economy that have been waiting and have literally been stopped when we look at having other funding source, like you talked about. The airport received somewhere between 22 million, and yet there is a breakdown from the CARES Act that shows an expenditure for some additional funding. And I just want to share with you, let me give you another example. HUD has over 2.6 million available to Guam based on the same CARES Act. So how does that all relate into what is being expended today? And I'm going to share with you, Chris and Sabrina, that yes, the governor has the authority to expend these federal funds, but the transparency and the accountability from both the administrative perspective and the legislature is that check and balance. And what we need to do is just have a better understanding of all the millions and millions of dollars that are coming in. Where is it actually going to? How is it actually being expended? And when will this timeline take us to? Like the PPP is probably only ranging between the month of March to the maximum month of July. The SPUC is probably a little of that extension from April to July. And then you have the stimulus, and the unemployment will give you all the way up to December. And that's millions and millions of revenues coming in to our island. How do we take all those funds, relate it into our community residents, and then how do we project for the future? And, I must say that the oversight chair on OFB, which is Senator Joe San Augustine, has also been trying to work with the administration to get what is the financial impact. If we're looking at if we're looking at a 53 million shortfall on the impact, how is that going to relate as we move forward with not just the 2020 budget that we're still in right now? How does that relate to the 2021 budget? And then I want to talk about, and when we were looking at this, we realized that there's an opportunity for rent relief. There's an opportunity to work not just with the renters, but also with the landlords. And how do we get those economies? I mean, how do we get those resources into that community of stakeholders who are both the landlord who rent, and then also giving that repeat to those renters that are literally don't have the means right now because their jobs have been interrupted because of this pandemic. And I want to say, Sabrina and Chris, that again, if we bring the information out, we talk about the different federal agencies that are continuing to bring the resources. How do we separate all of that? Who's affected? How is it being expended? And where do we go after the funds are depleted? And we just need to relook at the budget and work with both the administration and, of course, the legislature to make sure that we have a proper accountability and transparency on what needs to be done. And I want to share with you that just recently, the May 4th frequently asked questions was sent to us, and there was by the Treasury, and there were so many questions. Last week's Friday's Oversight asked me to ask a couple of questions as it relates to the housing component, and where do we go from here? Also, how does it affect the services that Guam provides, and working closely with the GAR and the questioning of how do we open right away? How do we close these mortgage loans that are needy so people can get into their houses? And how does that affect the government? Because I think for each package that's closed, Guam has, the government and land management has the opportunity to receive a lot of resources that we stopped. And I think according to GAR, it was a shortfall impact of over 24%, or 900 some, or 16%, I'm sorry, from cornerstone evaluations. And as we get those kind of information, Bree and Chris, is how do we put all these things categorically in perspective? How do we share with our community what's out there, and how do we tell them? And please, I want to say that as the agencies continue to do their part, we just need to continue to bring the information out on a daily basis. You and I know that every day is a new day. Every day we get more information, things become more fluent. And what I say to you right now may change based on the information that we get. When we hear the status updates from the federal government, when we hear from the National Conference of State Legislators, when we hear from the intergovernmental affairs of the federal government, working with the Trump administration's core staff, and how they've been working closely with us. And I just want to say that it can't stop until we have the full effect of the millions and millions.
Can't stop, won't stop. Speaker, I want to ask you about the letter the governor sent. She seemed pretty fired up about the override of Bill 333. Can we discuss that a little bit?
Chris, I want to share with you is I'm not an attorney, I'm not an esquire, and I personally cannot give legal advice, but I want to share with you that as your Speaker of the 35th Guam Legislature, the legislature does have an array of powers that to continue to hold our government accountable for. And I want to say that it's events like this informational briefing, when our colleagues have oversight hearings, to try and get answers and to share answers that come our way, so that there truly is a transparency and accountability there. I know that if you get 10 attorneys in a room, you'll probably get 10 different interpretations. But for me, as a policy writer, as your public servant, it's important that the information we receive, that both the legislature needs to be held accountable and transparent, but also the administration needs to be held. And if there's different avenues that we come about to get to where we need to be, the public needs to know. And for me, I just want to say that we can agree to disagree, but let us respect decisions. And if there is some extreme conflict or disagreement of what the interpretation is, there's a third branch of government, which is the judiciary, who can decide who's right or who's not right. But in the effort of making sure that we are held accountable and transparent to what we are doing and the programs that we need to get to our community, this is one positive avenue that we can bring everybody to the same table at the same time. And Bree, you've known me for many decades. That I have no problem bringing everybody to the same table, because that's the perspective where you can't say he said or she said this. We have everybody on the same table sharing a perspective, but knowing that if there's any further questions, they can always come back to bring added information or new information that comes our way almost on a daily basis. This is a pandemic nobody asked for, and
Right.
This is the first time in our lifetime. I never dreamt I would have to be going to something really as strenuous and I don't know, like Uncle Roman Canasta said.
Right.
I never would have wished this on anybody. Out of all the wars that he's been through, this is about the worst that someone could go through, because you can't see it, you can't feel it, and you don't know whether it's going to hit your family or not. And knowing that we've all gone through, some of us have gone through that threat of being affected by this virus, we know that we have to put proper protocols in place and protect our families.
Right, and like you said, that having everybody at the table, but I think that's the issue, that not everybody was at the table in this unprecedented war, in this epic battle. I mean, the legislature wasn't at the table,
right.
The mayor's council wasn't at the table,
and Bree, based on all the information that we, as my office has received a lot of the information, we've continued to engage. I want to thank the governor when I approached the opportunity for her to bring the information briefing out and to send down her designees again to talk about all these programs that Guam is going to be receiving or have already received. It was a very positive note, and that's why we're having this briefing, is to make sure that everybody knows what's going on. And you know what? Let's find the positive solutions. Let's take the high road. Let's say, you know what? Even if I didn't agree with how you were working the process, this is another avenue to look at, saying this is all the information I have. This is all I need to gather more information and hear what you guys are doing on your side, because it is the legislature who makes legislation and passes laws, but it is the governor's office, the administration, that has to implement. And if there is a differences of opinion or programming or whatever the differences are, there's always that third branch of government that can determine.
Well, it sounds like you guys are going to take her to court. Is that what you're trying to say?
No. What I'm trying
He's like,
to say,
because that's the second time you mentioned. You're like, we got this other whole branch of government, the judiciary.
Chris and Sabrina, please. There are different ways we can get the information out to our community, and I want to share with you that in the spirit of Inafamalik, in the spirit of working together for the greater good of our community, whatever differences we have, we need to be able to come together as leaders and share the information so that our people have a better understanding. And if they cannot understand, we have to be able to continue to answer every question that comes our way. And what better way is to bring the information out through venues like what we're going to do, through our altered public hearings of having to go through a temporary Zoom, is making that access available so that our community has an understanding that, yes, the government is working, the legislature is working, and we need to look at all the programs that we have received today, and the people need to know what is out there.
All right, Speaker, we got to run, but I just wanted to give you the floor and play a little catch up. And remember, we'll do this every week, okay?
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Chris.
Thank you,
very much.
Madam Speaker. Wash your hands, okay?
Good luck at the informational briefing.
Right.
Thank you. God
Okay.
bless.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, that's Speaker Tina Munia Barnes. We had an interesting comment in here. Where was that? All of a sudden, she's against the administration because election time's coming. And I wanted to bring that point up. And, if she calls in weekly, maybe we'll ask her next time. Because I feel like the Democratic leadership in the Guam legislature, for the most part, has allowed and enabled us to reach this point in their relatively hands-off treatment of the governor. That's kind of why the governor feels empowered. I don't got to tell you guys anything, because they've been her go-tos.